Now 7 PM. I hereby call this meeting of the Londonderry Heritage District Commission meeting to order this 16th day of November 2023. First item of business is approval of minutes from our prior meeting. Yes, sir. Oh, we may not. We have 4. Kelly, what's our requirement for a quorum?
Are there 7 of you? There's 7 of you, right?
Correct.
So 4.
Yeah, so we have a quorum.
Yeah.
We're good. First item of business is the approval of minutes from our prior meeting. I'll look those over briefly. Did you happen to take a look at those?
Accepted as presented.
Okay. Anybody like to second that motion?
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 There we go. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Minutes are approved. Before we move on to some of the other business, we do have a couple openings now for alternates, correct? I believe we should have a 2 and a 3-year term.
That sounds right, but
All right. David and I believe both of our positions are also coming up in December.
any vacancies, I believe, are posted on the website, so,
Okay,
for all boards and commissions.
okay.
Have we lost an alternate from since the last meeting?
Mr. Jeffries. has
Oh, I knew
resigned.
that.
Yeah.
That's the only,
Yep.
okay.
Okay, moving on, we'll now open a public hearing for an application for certificate of approval for the installation, construction of a wood post and rail fence on the Londonderry Town Common at 265 Mammoth Road, map 6, lot 98. Dave Wally, Town of Londonderry, Director of Public Works and Municipal Facilities, is the applicant, and the Town of Londonderry is the owner. This meeting has been continued from September 28th meeting. Is that, Kelly, that TV on?
Uh-oh, we got none now.
Give it a second.
Okay. What'd I touch?
David's thinking.
What'd I touch?
See that?
There we go.
Give it a second.
All right, there we go. All right, great, thank you. Good evening, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This is the same presentation that I brought to you back in September. I'll just briefly go through it as a little reminder of what the existing conditions are there. Currently, in the parking area for the town common, we have a bunch of logs that were placed there temporarily as a deterrent to keep people from driving onto the grass that they were trying to get established, and somewhat as a protection and barrier, if you will, from cars for the people that sit on the picnic tables and whatnot and relax. And they're splitting, as you can see. A lot of the bark has rotted and fallen off, and they get bumped and knocked around quite a bit. And when they get put back or rolled back into place, sometimes you can see that the gaps get narrowed up. So it doesn't really provide a good ease of access for foot traffic or people with walking disabilities. You also see some moss on the logs as well that kids have a good time playing with or sometimes potentially eating, getting their little fingers stuck in the split logs and cracks and what have you. And they've become quite of a maintenance pain, if you will, and a little bit unsightly for that matter. So what I've proposed there is a wooden railing system that I've successfully been using for better part of 20 years, my previous employment. This is at a park in Salem that we put in about 15 years ago. It weathers very, very well. As you can see, it's still in great shape. You can see the opening too there as well to allow the pedestrian traffic to go through. This is at a veteran retired cemetery, if you will, and park down by a river where there's some park benches to sit, read a book, or have a picnic and whatnot. And again, you see that there's an opening in the middle that directs people to where to walk to so that they're not moving in and out of cars. Some other uses you can see here that you can divide it up so it's not one big long continuous rail if you want. This was used as a protection barrier from it impacting into a police station when we had some credible threats that someone was going to ram the police station. And that office window there actually happens to be the chief of police's office, so we use this type of installation there as well. And then on a rail trail parking lot, again, gravel parking lot, fairly active foot traffic and whatnot, and it works very, very well. It blends in with the background and doesn't look so commercialized. So some people had talked about not doing this and putting down boulders and rocks. So I went and decided to get some pictures of that people had said that they over at the Morrison House. And yes, you can do something like this. It lacks uniformity, still a tripping hazard. If they're placed this close together like that as well, it also potentially can lead to blocking the water so that it doesn't get out of the parking lot and causing drainage issues. So again, they're not uniform in size. People can trip over them. Kids are walking on them. They might slip and fall. And they're very unforgiving for your vehicle. If you pull up too close to that because you can't see it because it's too low to the ground, you damage your front bumper, your undercarriage, and what have you. Or you bang a knee on it walking by trying to get onto the common as well. They are definitely not in the manual for uniform traffic control devices for sure. So it's something that I just can't see myself putting that there and creating that kind of a liability for the town.
Is the wooden railing that you're proposing in that standard?
Yes, to an extent. It is not for, using for traveling cars at 30 miles an hour or greater than that. But yes, as a recognized barrier device in a parking lot, absolutely, yeah. And so, and also when you place it like this, if we do the wooden rail, we're going to place it perhaps in the gravel area too, so we don't have to do any weed whacking and what have you. And it won't interfere with water as well. On the other side of the parking area of the Morrison House, they had just laid down some granite curbing that they had, and it poses the same conditions if you install it in this manner, where it blocks water and, again, tripping hazard, very low to the ground, and slippery when wet as well. Or just, place them rather erratically, just blocks and rocks and whatnot. Somebody in that moment right there could just as easily drive right over that and potentially hit people on the picnic tables. But, one thing about the Morrison House is a lot less traffic and a lot less activity that goes on at the Morrison House. So I'm not beating up on the way they have things there, but we're talking about the Common where we have upwards of hundreds of people there in the summertime pretty much weekly. And this type of wall was talked about as well. I got a rough guesstimate from a local company that told me, a 70-foot wall, 2.5 feet wide, 2.5 feet tall. You're looking at about $30,000 or north of $30,000 to do it right. And the problem with this as well is now, granted, it make a nice sitting wall. It looks very nice as well. But again, it creates a permanent barrier for water. So we could have potential drainage issues that we would have to deal with. I don't know if we would necessarily put it on any kind of a footing or foundation so that frost wouldn't mess with it as well, because I would highly recommend that we would cement it all together. They call that a wet stone wall, so that the rocks aren't getting taken apart or thrown around or kicked around or knocked off. And certainly if a car bumps into it, backs into it or whatnot and breaks it, then we got to get a mason in to repair it, and it could be costly. So a lot of expense. Yes, it's very nice to look at and somewhat functional, but can be very costly. So I already covered that. Just go ahead and talking about everything without even doing my fancy slideshow here. But maintenance is a concern. Like I said, it should be considered a wet wall so that it's not stacked dry and not cemented together. If we do a granite elevated curb, the thing about curbing is it's designed to direct water to a drainage system. So it would be nice to put in some vertical curbing there, but we would have to extend our drainage system because you're doing a definitive block of where the water can go, as some of the other types of ways of doing it can cause problems as well. So it's also very expensive to put it in the right way anyhow. Drainage would definitely be needed, and potentially some grade changes, so that if you're putting vertical curbing, you're then going to have to make sure that you have an opening somewhere where you have tip downs, so that you change the elevation so that people with wheelchairs or whatnot or walking disabilities can still enter onto the common safely without tripping on the vertical curb. Some very nice residents sent this to me, and I do like it. It definitively will, keep people from walking in areas that you don't want. But again, in this particular situation, this is more of probably when you're exiting a parking lot and not necessarily parking up against this. Kids can swing on it. Fairly expensive to install it, but it's really not a protection barrier of any kind whatsoever. So it's not going to provide anything for people that are sitting on the benches and what have you if somebody's foot happens to slip off the brake pedal. And granite is nice, but when you put it in this type of situation, they're very unforgiving. You bump it, they crack and break and fall right over, so there could be some expenses in repairing that as well. And then again, the chain links, they can rust over time and potentially break if somebody's swinging on it or standing on it. The other option is if we don't want to do anything, I got plenty of logs. There's a pile in our backyard right there. We can take the old ones out that have split and are moss covered and and fallen off, and we could lay down some new ones and then rinse and repeat and do the same thing over and over again if that's what we so choose to do. I would like to inform you as well that that we have a very generous gentleman in town, resident, business owner, if you will, that has stepped forward and likes the idea of the wooden railing, thinks that it would work out well there, likes the look of it and the appearance, and is willing to pay for it as well. So, so this option, there is no cost. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you. You did a good job with the presentation. I think you've given us some stuff to think about. That's what we asked for at the last meeting was, to give us some other options. I think you did a really good job of giving us those options and what the upside and downside of each option would be.
Thank you.
Commissioners, questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, I do, when you're ready.
Go ahead.
Okay. I agree with David. I think probably the safest and most cost-effective manner in which we can handle that is with wood rails and wood posts. I can tell you if there's anyone that has done some homework, a lot of the New Hampshire state parks in the state also has those type of designs.
Correct.
There's different types. There's wood with steel rail. There's steel posts with steel rail. I agree with them on the chain and the granite posts. I split granite posts myself by hand. They're very brittle, and when I set them in sand.
Right.
So when they do get hit by either a plow or someone else, it has the opportunity to move. The chains, I've seen kids swing on them and hurt themselves. So I think the best thing to do for that area is a wood rail and wood posts. And we can decorate or cut the tops to make it a little bit more.
Yeah, what they do, this particular company, is they miter all of them. So there's no sharp corners or edges. Even the ends of the railing itself, they miter them all. Yeah,
It's
And
like
I can
a
tell you if
45
anyone's been in Wyndham.
45 degree, they bevel
Where
it. Yeah.
Wyndham's Recreation Center is, their park, all the parking lot fences are wood.
Yeah, it's a pretty
Similar to
standard.
Salem.
It is. It's a very standard, common. We have it right here at our high school parking lot. I've seen it in a few business parking lots around town. The other type of rail that you're talking about, where it's a wood facade, if you will, over a steel rail. It's called iron rail or iron wood, something like that. It's expensive, but that's if you definitively want to make sure that no one is going to intentionally ram through an area. So it has a much higher impact rating than per se this. But again, it's to get it away from that look of, your traditional, steel guardrail that you see out on the highways and around town. You're in an area that's considered a park, if you will, and you don't want that look.
Is the wood pressure treated?
Yes, yep. It's
What's it?
Canadian fir.
What type of fittings do you use to fasten it together?
So they use 5/8 lags that go right through, and what they also do is when they bolt them, any of the lag itself that might be longer than what is needed, they cut those right off as well and bevel them down, so there's no sharpness. They don't want anybody getting cut out or anything like that.
You know what kind of material the hardware is?
Just galvanized.
Stainless or
Just
galvanized,
galvanized.
yeah, okay.
Anything
not
wrong with
stainless.
Using stainless?
What's that?
Anything wrong with using stainless?
Cost. You really don't need, the galvanized is just as fine. It's not gonna rust out or anything like that, and it's in wood anyway, so there's really no need to go with the stainless, other than, if you want to drive the cost up quite a bit. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Dave, two things from your presentation tonight. Thank you for this. One is the pictures, I think, tell a lot, particularly the ones of the alternates that you offered up. And I hadn't thought about water and the concerns with blocking water or funneling water away from the common, particularly after all the work you've done there, et cetera. And I guess in the end, when you consider in the donation from the generous, I noticed unnamed benefactor at this point, that to me kind of pushes it over the edge and makes it easy.
Yeah, and water is definitely a factor. Across the street where it comes down that drive, out of the back of the church's parking lot, if you will, I mean, it shoots right across the road right there and comes right into the gravel lot, and there's a swale to the right of the parking lot along the wood line, and then it bleeds out into the grass, and there's a basin right there. So if we do any kind of solid barrier there, whether it be a wall, line up rocks or granite edge, we're gonna have to deal with the drainage issue for sure. And, the gentleman will be named at one point when it'll be brought before council for the donation to the town, so.
Is there you said a lot of water comes off that other property. Is there
Yeah.
like a culvert or anything on that side to direct the water?
So, maybe I can back up.
That's just out of curiosity, obviously. It's kind of outside the scope of this.
Back
but-
up a couple of slides right here. So that basin right there is just down the hill of the crest of that driveway that I'm speaking of. So any water that sheds that way will go to that basin, but the road isn't super elevated or anything, so when it comes flying down off that drive, it shoots right across the
Crosses
street.
right over.
So, I mean, nominal rain, it's going to this basin, but when it's heavy downpour stuff, I've seen it comes flying right across the street.
That must contribute heavily to the drainage issues that we've seen on the common.
Well,
I'm sure.
the whole common is a bowl.
Yeah.
It really is. Mammoth Road sheds off of it. Pillsbury, the whole thing sheds off of it. It's barely crowned in the middle. And so, the drainage that was put in is definitely working. If you wanted none on there, then you would have had to have put granite curb around the whole thing in order to do it. It would have been a great expense to do.
Okay. Personally, I mean, I think, like I said, you did a great job giving us all the options, and I agree with you. I think it's probably the best option. It seems like it's the one that does everything that we want it to do with seemingly no drawbacks, so. And somebody else is gonna pay for it.
That's always nice.
Right, yeah, exactly. You don't even have to take it out of the budget. Okay, so at this point, I'd like to open up, this is a public hearing, so any members of the public that would like to speak on this, please. We need you to approach the mic so you can introduce yourself and be on the record, please.
Kaylee Esposito, 5 Shelley Drive in Londonderry. Just curious, just clarify, is this just a section of the lot by the parking lot, or is this the whole entire common?
Nope, it's literally just the part by the parking lot to act as something to stop the cars from being able to drive onto the common. That's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other public input? Okay. We can put this to a vote,
You need a motion?
please.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the wooden post and rail fence proposed for the parking lot at the Londonderry Town Common.
Second.
And seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Approved.
God bless.
Or recommended for approval. Okay, moving on, we have a couple of formal review applications. The first being for a site plan for a 96-unit multifamily residential development and associated site improvements in the multifamily residential district at 35 Gilcrest Road, tax map 7, lot 118. Gilcrest Realty Holdings LLC owner and applicant. This item is also continued from the September 28th meeting.
Good evening. My name's Joseph Maynard. I'm with Benchmark LLC. I'm here on behalf of Gilchrist Holdings. So this piece of property, it's along Gilchrist Road. It's an old apple orchard. The orchard had been on this property since the early 1970s. Prior to that, it was row crops, potato fields, that kind of thing. The apple orchard itself, it's very overgrown, for those of you who have gone down that area. The vines, everything is pretty much taken over. It has not been maintained in about 20 years. The piece of land that we're talking about is 23 acres. It's in the R3 zone. In the street, we have sewer, water, and gas services available. Ultimately, what we're proposing here is a 96-unit townhouse-style project. Interior roads within the development will be 28 feet in width. Unit configuration range from about 3 units in a building to 8 units in a building. We have a small amenity area that we're proposing. There's a driveway that is shown on the plans as a loop or a horseshoe shape to access that portion of the lot. Within that amenity area, there's a sports court, a playground, a basketball area, and parking, as I said, associated with it. Each of the units themselves, they have conventional garages, 2 cars in size. All of the parking that's proposed within the development in front of the units ranges from 2 to 4 cars deep associated with it. And there's a couple of remote parking areas that are proposed as part of the plan. Got a couple of renderings that were done for the project. This is looking in from Gilcrest Road. That's the amenity area. There's some units that are behind it. The landscape architect still has some work to do for buffering between units. But ultimately, this is that area that we're talking about for amenities. They actually gave me a couple other concepts of what they're proposing, to give you some idea of the architecture and the style. And this is the plans that were sent to me for that. So. The plan has been through the first round of review by staff and outside consultant. We received some comments the other day. We're kind of waiting to address all those comments till we get through this meeting. If there's anything that we can add or change as part of this, we'll do that as part of that revision. So.
Just to clarify, this property is kind of on the southeast side of the Home Depot property, is that correct?
It's, yeah, southeast of Home Depot. That's probably the best way to put it. So.
Okay.
Ultimately, from a grade perspective, design perspective, the roads in this project all range in very shallow slopes, somewhere in the 3 to 5% range. There's no steep slopes associated with anything on the lot. Ultimately, all our drainage goes to one detention pond at the end of one of the cul-de-sacs. Keeps that all in one corner of the lot, the southwest corner of the property.
Did you submit a lighting and landscaping plan?
So at this time, the lighting and landscaping, we held off on for the, just to see what comments came out of the initial review. Ultimately, I think we were proposing 4, 5, 6 streetlights in the property, just to illuminate the actual driveways themselves. The buildings will have just building-mounted type
Wall
of
packs,
lights. Yeah,
yeah.
wall packs. There won't be any street-side lamps for the driveways or anything. The way the layout is, the driveways are just somewhat close to each other, so it doesn't make sense to put some sort of a lamp post at the end of a driveway.
Okay. Are you guys proposing signage for the property as well?
There is a sign being proposed at one of the entranceways. I don't have a picture of it for this initial meeting. The talk was it was going to be some sort of stone wall with a sign on it with some landscaping around the backside that's taller and shrub stuff on the front side.
Sure. Kind of a monument.
Yeah, just
Type
kind of
sign.
delineate the project in itself, so.
Okay. Commissioners, questions or comments on the design?
What kind of siding are we working with here?
Rick is here, he can probably answer those questions a little better than I can. I deal with mostly dirt, so. Come on up, Rick. I got some questions about what type of siding.
Hello, Rick Welch, Massetti Development. The siding will be vinyl siding. We do
Asphalt.
actually, I think we're able to pull out a picture of the sign too. I don't think it made it to his.
Didn't make it to me yet.
To his email, but we do have a picture of that. We can pull it up shortly. Is it on your email?
So vinyl siding and trim, asphalt shingle.
Asphalt shingle, AZAC on the trim,
Yep.
and, yes, architectural shingles.
Yep.
Is the front elevation flat?
The units have stagger to them on the front, depending on where they fall in relationship to the curves in the road. I tried to keep 2-unit blocks and then step the odd ones. There are some units in this that are 5 units in a building, and like I said, I'm trying to work them around the curve, and I step them as I go around those curves.
Are there any of those buildings that the rear faces Gilchrist Road?
So there is. These couple of buildings would face Gilchrist Road in that corner. We're working with the landscape architect to create some berms with landscaping around them to buffer that from Gilchrist itself.
Well, my opinion of it, I think it's cold, it's bland, it's probably, my knowledge of the construction industry, probably one of the most economical ways to throw something up. It looks like a pillbox to me. I think it needs to be relooked. When I take a look at the people that are behind building this and take a look at the product that they have given this town prior to this thing, totally different. Totally, totally different.
So this building, I know you've seen it probably before, but it does lay out to what people want for the layout. And I think we're definitely open for suggestions.
Good.
I
I
think
hope
we,
so.
we came to this meeting expecting some input, and we're certainly willing to take it. These are early drawings, and
I know they are.
I think that's one of the reasons we're here tonight is to get some input on them. So I respect what you're saying, and we're open to
It's just
that.
totally different of what the product that you've given us in the past, which has been great. You know,
This will be too.
I'm sure we'll get there.
We'll get there.
Yes.
Personally, I agree. I think there could be a lot more architectural design that would add some interest to the building. Seems relatively flat. I know you said there's some bumping out of different parts of the building.
Yeah, just staggered.
Yeah, but just looking at it flat from the front, it looks kind of bland. I would like to see some elements of architectural interest added in there. Maybe some more variation in the colors. There's plenty of things you can do. You know them better than I do, but
Well, the colors are still being decided on. We don't want them all the same color, but we don't want drastic changes either. So we're into looking, designers are helping us with shades of certain colors that would complement each other without being too different.
I think it is important too to consider that it is going to be in a high visibility area. There's going to be lots of traffic around it. So keeping it looking nice from all elevations basically would be really helpful. Any other
Are there
comments?
any renderings of the backs?
So this is looking in from Gilcrest, and these are the back of the couple of units that are closest to it. Like I said, we were talking to the landscape architect about putting some buffers between the backs of these units in this area on the street to kind of shield the backside of them.
What I see there, it looks like, is there a deck for each unit?
Every unit has a deck, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Are you going to allow grills and stuff on the decks?
Yes, there are rails shown in the drawing, they're just hard to see, so,
Yes, they are. Hard to see.
yeah.
And I agree with the other comment about, you've only got two colors there. Well, three, white.
Yep.
But you've got two grays and a white. I think it needs a little more mixture in it.
Yep.
This is probably where the landscape plan is going to help you a lot too. Adding plenty of bushes and trees to help screen some of the property will help out a lot, but
Yeah, yeah, we're talking about some areas between buildings too. It doesn't take much to kind of just break it up. But again, we just got comments the other day, so we're kind of holding off on letting them loose on it 100% until we saw if we had to manipulate any of the design.
sure.
On the other renderings, I couldn't see any details about the windows. Are they,
And you mean from a grill standpoint?
yeah,
Yeah. They didn't propose any grill work in the glass or anything.
there's none?
None on this plan. We're open, I guess, for craftsman style or just your standard 2/3 type of grid.
We'll definitely have grills, just for, trying to pick a design, whether it's just split on the top or grills on the top and not the bottom. But,
Yep.
we're obviously.
We do typically suggest that like some kind of grill pattern in the windows helps a lot.
Yeah, all our projects, we do use grills.
Sure.
We've gone through a variation of a couple of different types, but.
Have you thought about anything as a kind of a base at the bottom, whether it be brick or stone or anything like that, to add a little bit of different material?
Well, the base, the
Yeah.
first floor is all garage.
Right.
It's all garage
So
and a
it's
door.
not-
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
That's true.
The other thing I've seen in these designs elsewhere is those strips of grass over a period of time. They don't last. It looks
We-
good,
yeah.
but they don't last.
So with the comments and stuff that we've gotten for review so far, we actually did sit down the other day and talk about ways to make those strips wider. I think we got it up to 10 feet in one spot for width, and it allowed us to give some more landscaping up near the door as part of it. So we did work that in, I just haven't revised the plan yet, so,
So that'll reduce the width of those driveways a little bit.
a little bit, yep.
But they are wide enough for the two, for the two-car
Minimum
garage.
2 cars, yeah. So,
When we first were in front of the planning board, if you remember, the strips were smaller. We were trying to
I
figure
remember.
out what to do there, so
Understood.
it got redesigned.
Where does your roof drain? There.
So not all the buildings have a roof drain associated with them. From a drainage perspective, there are a number of them that we're collecting it through gutter systems and sending it to an infiltration pond that we had proposed as part of the design. It went through alteration of terrain. There's some modifications that are being done to that right now. But there will still be a collection system on, I think there's 4 or 5 units that we can't control the runoff from, so we have to pipe it to whatever our storage unit will be for it. And it'll be an underground storage system for that. You wouldn't see it, and it would be more or less the backside of the buildings, because we can control the runoff once it gets to the street. But the backside, I need to direct it, and so we're guttering the roof on some locations.
You have gutters on both sides where you have them.
For the most part, where I need them, yes.
Okay, the couple of notes that I've made so far is we'd like to see some additional architectural design elements.
Yep.
Maybe some better choices of color
Yep.
to help make it pop a little bit. We need lighting, signage, and landscape plans,
Yep.
and the addition of the window lights.
Yep. Window grills.
The lights.
Oh, I'm talking
Okay.
about that.
So the color scheme that you can see there, I think is a little more what we were looking at. Looks very gray compared to some lighter tans and grays mixtures in that, but again, we're still considering what the color should be, but they would be, mild transitions. That's just a copy of another project. That's not, not
Sure.
the colors that we're doing.
Is that your project, Rick?
No.
No, it's just a similar project.
Understood.
There is our sign, thank God, it showed up.
So that is the sign you're actually proposing?
Yes.
But that was not in your submission, correct?
No.
I like it. In the couple of pictures that you were just showing us, there were some different material types. I mean, they were probably both vinyl, but it looked like there was like a cedar shake type looking material along with the clapboard. Something like that might help a little bit to break it up, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it would be
Just adding
something-
different textures.
looking at the peaks, I
Yep.
think you can see some of that in the peaks, but we, as Jim has said, our other projects, we spend a lot of time trying to get them just right, and this is fairly early, and
Early
we're,
on.
we're willing to listen to what Heritage had to say as
You
well,
always have, Rick,
instead of redoing it. I think you gave us some samples maybe that,
probably.
The one other comment I'm gonna put on here is just, try to use the landscaping to break up the property, fill in some spaces, screen some of the decks and stuff like that.
Yep.
Any other comments? Right, are you guys when are you planning to try to break ground?
we're, depending on how fast we get through the planning board, but it would be 2024 at some point.
Okay. Right, we'll look forward to seeing you come back.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
just before you guys leave town here, there's been some publicity about fencing, et cetera, on the back of the property. Has that all been resolved? Is that something that we have to see, the fencing?
So around the back side of the lot,
Nevin side?
so it goes from here over, it comes here, conservation asked us to pull it out of the CO buffer, we were trying to just keep a straight line, and it ends, right about here is where the fence, it was just gonna be a 4-foot tall chain link fence. You won't see it from anywhere on the site unless you're down near that detention pond or behind some of these units on the low end. So it was a request by the abutting property, just so they give a barrier of some kind to keep children and stuff from roaming through the open space that's over there.
Okay.
Okay. No other comments or questions? We will see you back at one of our future meetings.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks.
Also have the image on the thumb drive.
Okay.
This stuff before the meetings, even if it is a reschedule.
Yep. Yep, agreed. Yeah, we'll talk through that before we adjourn. Okay, next item on the agenda is an application for design review of a site plan to construct a 12,000 plus square foot medical building and 3,000 plus square foot bank and associated site improvements. Map 15, Lot 60-2, Gene Gagnon, owner, and Bill Griner, applicant. This item is also continued from our September 28th meeting.
Hi, I'm Roger Dignard. I'm an architect with Stone River Architects, and last time you asked for some material samples. So I brought some stuff along for show and tell.
Awesome.
So the brick we're looking at is Morin LaChance. It's actually manufactured in Maine. So it's a local brick. It's got a nice red color. It's got a little bit of flash to it. And that would be the base of the building. And Bill Griner has used the same brick in the Bedford Medical Park facility,
That's
which
the
you may
same
have seen.
manufacturer that's on the Derry Medical Building.
Okay.
It may be a different blend, but same manufacturer.
Yes. And you can see that we have essentially three colors. It's fiber cement siding. And just to refresh my memory, I think it's Monterey taupe on the shingles, Harris cream on the clapboard, and all of the trim is Arctic white. So if I were to stack these samples like they were going to be on the building, and I think this is a better color, a little better on the color representation. It's hard to get the right color in
So
the
that-
software.
That bottom cement board
Would be
is
the shingle,
taupe.
yes.
Okay.
And that would be between the windows.
Is that the old port blend? That? Is that
The
what you-
old port,
Yeah,
yeah, there's a couple of blends. There's
I
a
was
full
gonna ask.
flash,
if it's old port, it is the same brick that's on Derry Medical Center.
yeah. There's a full flash range and a narrow,
No, I'm gonna turn the lights up.
and a narrow range. This is the narrow range on the flashing. Because it's only for several feet high, I think it'd look too busy if we did the dark flashes in the brick. So I think it's some very warm colors. And also the roof shingle is slate, rather hard to see. Maybe
Yep.
I could hand it off to you.
Sure, yeah, if you could bring those up, that'd be great.
I'm gonna sit in a movie theater.
All right, thanks.
There we go. I think that will work well with the bus station.
The bus station has a similar
Yeah,
red brick.
similar to it. That'll work out.
And we like using the Morin LaChance because it's a relatively local brick, environmentally
Oh, yeah.
conscious because you're not paying to load it on a railway car from wherever.
So is this gonna be full face or is this gonna be thin brick?
It's full brick.
Are you using full brick?
And there'll be a Rolox sill at the base of the windows.
Thank you. Yeah, I get it. little history on that brick plant. The LaChance brothers used to own that. And they're one of the first, or one of the few water-struck brick. It's a certain project that's done. They still do it, and then Stars on Hot Town and Bridgewater, Mass. actually continue to do it. It produces a very hard, dense brick. Since then, Moran's been bought out by Glengarry, I think is the name of the brick company. But good. When I dealt with them, when it was time to go hunting or fishing, they put it up on the door of the plant. Said, go on fishing, the boys said, they'd go. The plant is shut down. Crazy. Good people. Would you mind, can you show me the canopy, the front canopy? You had an elevation.
Yes, so that would be the number 24, perspectives, I believe. Is that the image that you're looking for?
Yeah, that was the image. The only reason why I asked for it is, there's another building in town where they don't actually have a canopy like that. But it's too short, so when people get out, if it's pouring out, they're wet before they get in the building. And how tall is that?
Want to make it safe.
Yeah, I was gonna
So
ask that.
over the road is 14 and a half feet,
Yes.
and the core of the canopy will clear 14 and a half.
Thank you.
That's why the collar ties are up where they are.
Looks good. You think? Very nice. And this entrance is coming off of Vista Ridge,
Yes,
not 28, right?
Yep.
Just one entrance.
just one entrance. The entrance is about located in the conceptual plan that was associated with the larger subdivision.
Okay.
And who's making the siding, the cream and the taupe and the white?
Hardy is the manufacturer
Okay.
of the siding.
You say Hardy?
Hardy.
Yeah.
Are the shingles variegated as you indicate in the drawing?
Yes, it's an
far as their
architectural
different
grade shingle, so it has a sculpted, what do they call, high relief? I think is the term they use.
Right, but you're showing them as having different widths.
Yeah, that's the architectural.
Yes.
Drawing.
It's
So
an
not
architectural,
one.
yeah, it's an architectural grade shingle.
Okay.
I think you have a sample.
Still right up
Up here, the roof shingles up there.
Thanks. I think high definition is the term they use.
I'm taking a look at the sign that you're proposing. And, oh, okay. So you have down lighting and it's being cast down by like the top piece is gonna have lighting in it facing down onto the sign,
I
basically.
believe that was the intent of the sign
Okay.
rendering.
So is any of it backlit or is it only gonna be lit by that
I
light up
think it's
top?
also backlit.
And then you also have Vista Ridge Medical Park in letters on the side of the building. Is that also gonna be backlit?
Yes.
Yeah.
And just for a point of information, they showed the sign on the building on the side of it. It's going to be moved to the front side, so the
28.
side facing Rockingham.
Yeah, makes sense.
We just didn't have time to get them to change it prior to this meeting.
Mr. Chairman, can I just, would you consider putting shutters on the building to soften it a little bit? I know it's an added expense, and quite frankly, they can be a pain in the ass. I get it.
Yeah, just from a design standpoint, I avoid
Okay.
doing shutters because they're not functional.
Okay.
It becomes a bit of Disneyland at this
I
point.
asked.
to-
Okay, respect that.
Brick is gonna be the same brick on the monument sign as
Yes,
as
the
base of
the
the building.
intent is for this brick to be the same as that brick, and then the color palette to be the same as to match the building.
Okay.
I think it's a good mix of materials, actually.
Would you consider 2/2 for your fenestration instead of 2/1? In your windows, you have 2 lights on the top, big light on the bottom. And you have 2/2.
Yeah, the 2/1 dates back to the late 1800s, and
Smaller lights would date even further back.
we like doing 2/1.
Okay.
And while we're on the topic of the building, so this project's being broken up into 2 phases. Phase 1 being the main medical building and phase 2 being the bank. The bank tenant hasn't been chosen yet, therefore the building really hasn't started being designed because it may have some,
So is that 2 buildings or 1 building?
there's 2 buildings.
Be 2 buildings.
The second one isn't part of the
I- it-
presentation so far, I'm guessing, correct?
So far not. Let me, so 29 and 30, sheet 3. So this is the phasing plan. Phase 1 is building the infrastructure that will support the medical building while leaving utility stubs for the bank building, but also prepping that pad for the bank, prepping the pad for the parking associated with it, and then installing the stormwater berm around it and then installing the full stormwater pond. So that way all the stormwater will be in place and it will function appropriately. Once the bank is chosen, then we would come in and do phase 2. We have presented a waiver, or submitted a waiver to the planning board to allow relief from providing the architectural renderings for the bank since we don't have them and don't have a tenant in mind to essentially make that building. But we've described that the architectural style and standard will match this architectural style prior to that building permit being issued, come back before the Heritage Commission and back before the planning board if they deem that necessary.
Yeah, I would say, we can, assuming everybody agrees, we can approve or recommend for approval, the design on the first building, but we would ask that you come back with a finished design plan for
We
the second.
completely understand that. I guess we're just looking for is there support of that waiver if we were to come back before you and if this architect, with the understanding that the architectural standard will be similar to this building.
You're talking about this area here, right?
Yeah, so that's prepping the pad, and then if you look to the right of the screen, there is what the bank pad will be built out as.
Okay.
That rectangle hasn't been designed, but that is what we've, that's the area we allotted for the bank, and then the architectural design of that building will fit in that box.
So real quick question, based on what you're telling me, that pad, will you seed it over?
Yes.
So we're not gonna look at a dirt
No, it will
Or
be stabilized.
gravel or anything, it'll be
Yes.
stabilized?
Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns, comments? All right,
Need a recommendation or a motion?
sure.
I make a motion that we recommend this as shown.
Any seconds?
Second.
Seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. So the approval for the first building is recommended to the planning board. The second building, like I said, you will have to come back.
That is understood.
Okay.
Thank you for doing your homework.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good night.
Oh, not yet, John. I like that. Did a good job,
Actually, this is nice.
you know?
Okay, moving on, next item is other business. Does anybody have any other business to discuss? Okay,
I have one thing, Mr. Chairman.
yes.
From the May meeting, we had a gentleman in that presented his concerns about his property at 2 Litchfield Road, if you remember.
Yeah.
Yes,
And James, you remember you and I
I
toured it?
remember,
Okay.
yep.
Mr.
I do.
Do
Flyer.
we have an update
Yep.
on where we're at on that property?
Per the direction of the council, the town manager and I proceeded to meet with the property owner and their legal counsel. And at this time, the recommendation from the council was essentially it can operate as is. Or there's a potential for the property to be rezoned if the property owner chooses to move forward with that. But at this time, there's no action being taken. So,
Okay.
I mean, my position, guys, was the fact that I understand the exterior. There are some limitations on the project, obviously, or property, obviously, you know that. I wasn't opposed to allowing them to, I wasn't opposed, but that doesn't mean, you know, that that's what happens. That they could do some renovation inside to house people, apartment or a house or whatever.
Yeah, my
You know?
understanding was most of the inside has already been changed drastically from what
Oh,
it
yeah,
originally was.
it definitely has. There's been some stuff there, but, you know, I get the outside because guess that's what we'll look at. It's not like the Lions, it's not like the Lions Hall where people have the ability to go inside, the public. You know, it's a private, and we've made comment and we're waiting to see what Mr. Fly would like to do.
So the ball's in his court, basically.
I would say that's a safe assumption, yes. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
One other thing that a couple of us were talking about earlier was, it seemed like the two review applications that we got for tonight kind of showed up suddenly. We had gotten a copy of the agenda a couple of weeks ago. Do we have a new assistant, by the way?
we do. Alicia is our land use assistant. So you'll be seeing more emails from her directly.
So yeah, we got an agenda from Alicia a couple of weeks ago that had only the town common item. And then we were a little surprised to see that there were a couple more things for tonight. So again, anything we can do to try to get some of this stuff earlier before the meetings if we can. Did these guys both put in their
They're continued
applications
from the
later?
last meeting.
I understand that they're continued, Kelly, but we don't have the documents, et cetera, to look at these things before we come to the meeting, unless they're sent along with the package, and I don't think they were in the package that I received.
Yeah, they weren't on the agenda that we got originally, but.
The only thing I got was his talk about the rail.
Right,
that
right,
was in
yeah.
the package.
But new assistant,
I
simple
know
oversight.
Somebody was gonna come tonight and said she wouldn't because we're gonna have one thing.
Okay. Other than that, we have public input. There are no members of the public.
Before we wrap though, could we put a bow on how far in advance we'd like to get the documentation for these meetings? I think at one point in time, we had talked about a week or 2 weeks
2 weeks, yep.
in advance.
Yeah,
I
considering.
know some of us do and some of us don't, but you generally go through that stuff and kind of look it over, and I may not go in depth with, Mr. Butler might, but I do my best to look at the stuff before we come to the meeting. So if I could get it a week or 2 in advance, or we could lock that down.
So if we have it a week in advance, I'll include it, but we don't always have it a week in advance, and there's no formal requirement to send it in advance to my office unless I continuously ask for it, which I do. But, you know, I guess we're doing the best that we can, and I'll certainly keep on asking for information as far as advance as feasible, and it'll be included, if I have it, at least a week in advance.
When you say there's no formal requirement, where would that requirement come from? Would that be a town council?
Nope. So this is an advisory board, as part of the site plan submission package that the applicants submit, whether it be design review or formal. They should include architectural renderings in there, but typically when we go through the design review process first, a lot of them hold off until they get to this commission because they're seeking your feedback. So sometimes it's included in that submission, sometimes it's not.
And I think the other thing too is that, you know, we're pushing to try to accommodate our customers and builders. And sometimes that schedule can be all over the place. You know, they may say, because we only meet, what, once?
Every 2 months.
Every 2 months.
Right.
Yep.
So here these gentlemen or ladies or gentlemen developers, you know, they're clicking along with the building department, and they're spending money with engineers and everything else to get it to one point. And, you know, sometimes they may jump in and say, hey, look, can we get in to see the Heritage Commission sooner? You know, we only meet once every 2 months. It becomes kind of, sometimes it can become a little rough. And, you know, all we can do is see if we can get something earlier. That's,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know what I'm saying? That's,
Yeah, which, I mean, like, in the instance tonight where they were looking for feedback, but they still had some time,
yeah,
fine. It's just, you know, sometimes they're, well, we have a timeline, we gotta, well, okay, but
and you know something?
you gotta get us the information then.
If they don't give us the feedback, they're coming back.
Yep.
That's their problem,
Yep.
not mine. And that's the case.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
we've
I
asked,
didn't like it.
we've asked plenty of people to come back, even though they had a timeline, but if they
But
don't give us
the
what we
last
need.
gentleman here, this guy, he did his homework. He knew what we wanted. Made it easy for him. That one, pretty good, if you ask me.
Yes, I would like them in advance as well, because
Yeah.
I do go over them.
Understood.
Blow them up, look at a little bit here, a little bit there. Looking
get
for
it.
Syringa vulgaris, wherever it is. But at the rest of it as well.
You know, before you came on board, Kelly, we did have some feedback from, and I don't remember the woman's name,
Cynthia? Was it Cynthia?
who
Colleen?
basically castigated us for 3 or 4 of the buildings that I think preceded several of us in this building. So, you know, if we have to, it's the new language, request for approval, whatever the, recommend for approval.
Recommend for approval, yeah.
It's sort of like putting our name on the check.
Yeah.
And,
Oh,
and I just would feel a hell of a lot more comfortable having material in here, and to the point where if I don't have it, I really don't even feel comfortable voting on it. Okay?
You absolutely shouldn't if you don't feel comfortable making a recommendation.
I mean, maybe what we can do is, you know, ask the planning department, look at, when these guys come in, if they want to get in front of us, or they're scheduled to get in front of us, if they don't have elevations or they don't have drawings, don't be surprised if you don't have to come to another meeting.
Well, there's a difference, I think, when somebody is coming to get an opinion, like the one group here tonight, and that's fine, okay? But when they're looking to move the process forward. I think, you know, we'd like to see the materials in advance. We've requested samples like we've seen tonight.
That's dropped off.
That has dropped
Yeah.
off, of the materials that are gonna be used, so we can look at those. Some more definition on the colors. You know, I appreciate, I think every presenter basically sometime during their presentation says, the colors from the computer don't match what I'm
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
put on the building, okay? That's great, show me the colors you're gonna get. Same thing with the second building that was proposed tonight. Once their tenant is in place, the bank building, we have to see that, because maybe the tenant is that one bank that wants an orange roof, okay? So, you know, we have to see that stuff. I guess my position, Kelly, would be, if somebody really wants to move the process forward and they come to the meeting ill-prepared, I feel bad sending somebody away, particularly where we only meet every 2 months, although I guess we've voiced a willingness to do special meetings when required.
Yeah, we're doing one next month.
Yeah, but push them off. Push them off, say, you know, maybe I can get you on a special meeting or something, but if you're not prepared to bring in, and you want to move forward, rather than just get an opinion, you know, you have to have your ducks in a row here.
And so we do emphasize that to the applicants when they submit the applications. It's a communication that occurs each time. I personally do it. If the applicant chooses to still come to this commission, and this commission doesn't make a favorable recommendation, and then they still proceed to go to the planning board, I would imagine the planning board will look at that and say, why didn't you go to the Heritage Commission fully prepared, and then it's gonna come back to you. So that's the process.
Well, I want to ask you a question. Can the process be changed where the developer understands that he has to get a recommendation, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, before they move forward? Because quite frankly, you know what you're telling me? They can jump this. They can jump this board, do what the hell they want, and just go to the planning board.
So they have to come here?
They
in
have to
terms
come
of-
here.
In terms of how prepared they are, is, you know, case by case, which is why this commission makes a recommendation at that time.
Okay?
And I mean, I guess to your point earlier, right, if they come and we say we don't recommend approval,
Well, there was a
That's-
builder tonight that's done some nice work in our town. Has always worked with us, as far as I can see. I can't speak for you guys, but he didn't give us what we wanted. So guess what? Rick's coming back.
on the plus side, he knew that. You know,
Yeah,
he
he
knew he
did know
wasn't
that.
giving us
I
what we wanted, and he knew that he was gonna have to come back. So this was a preliminary,
Yeah.
we want your ideas, we wanna know what you think, and we'll come back better prepared next time. That's, to
That's
me,
okay
that's
with me.
totally acceptable.
But if someone comes like that and expects us to give them a recommendation,
Right,
it's not
yeah.
gonna happen. Well, as long as I sit on the board.
And we've had a few of those where
Yeah.
they say, you know,
Yeah.
we're trying to break ground next month. Well, sorry, but you didn't bring us what we needed.
Exactly. John, are you happy with that?
I'm ecstatic.
Okay.
I just, I think you know where I'm at, okay? So it just, whatever, I don't like the idea of being particularly nasty to a builder because they come in here unprepared, but I also don't want them wasting our time or our wasting their time because we're bouncing people out of here. Because the flip side of that is all of a sudden we hear about Londonderry, the unfriendly town again, okay? And we don't need that either. So, I would just as soon everybody knows what they have to do and come prepared to do what they have to do, rather than us having to get into that kind of fray. And then, yeah, we give people honest feedback as we always do, but, you know, I guess that's where I'm at.
All right.
You know what's happening in December? Special meeting on the 14th.
I don't. There was in the email that we got, there wasn't a description of what we were meeting for.
We have a significantly sized project coming in, the Technology Hill PUD, and they've asked to get a head start with the Heritage Commission. As you can imagine, the review process itself will likely take multiple trips to this commission. So they wanted to come to you essentially first to get your feedback.
They're on a timeline, I'm guessing.
They have their own timeline,
Yeah.
yes, but if the commission was willing to do a special meeting, I said I would pose the question, so.
Yeah.
So when they come in front of us, what are they gonna present to us?
I've
Is
told
this
them,
just conceptual? I mean, it's conceptual, well, what do you want? I mean, they must, in their minds, know roughly what they want. I mean, what are they gonna show us? Or are they gonna show us anything?
so I've asked them to provide any materials, so architectural, landscaping, lighting,
Okay,
1 week in advance of the 14th,
okay.
so that I can get it to you a week in advance.
Awesome.
I hope it's successful.
We'll see. All right, guys, hate to break up the fun, but I'm ready to
Move
get out of
adjourn.
here.
What is-
You move that we
And you
adjourn?
thought we were done 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, I know.
Would anybody like to second that motion?
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.